Hi, welcome to This is China. I'm your host, Wendy Sun, a journalist based in Beijing. In this podcast, I'll invite my friends, both Chinese and international, to share with you their observations and stories in China. At the 7th Tang Xianzu International Theatre Exchange Month in East China's Jiangxi province, an English language rendition of the Kunqu Opera masterpiece, the Peony Pavilion, came to life. The rendition was brought from Shakespeare's hometown to Fuzhou, hometown of Tang Xianzu, author of the Peony Pavilion. We talked to some international performers participating in the rendition and the festival. So in this episode, let's discover what would happen when Shakespeare meets Tang Xianzu and how a century-old opera masterpiece dissolves cultural boundaries for British and Chinese. Our first guest is Michael Dobson, director of the Shakespeare Institute at the University of Birmingham. He brought the English rendition of the Peony Pavilion from Shakespeare's birthplace to Tang Xianzu's hometown. Would you like to introduce yourself and your team to our listeners? And what's special about the English version of the Peony Pavilion?
My name is Professor Michael Dobson. I'm the director of the Shakespeare Institute, which is in Stratford-upon-Avon, Shakespeare's hometown. It's a specialist research department of the University of Birmingham, which has always specialised in Shakespeare studies, and we attract students and scholars of Shakespeare from all over the world, including China. We're a very international department, and the students who are performing, some are English, one is Chinese, one is Irish, one is American. The director, who also sings, is American. So it's a very characteristic sample of the students who come from all over the world to study Shakespeare, whether in English or in translation, at the Institute in Stratford. But it's really exciting to be bringing from Shakespeare's hometown the Peony Pavilion, translated almost in the style of Shakespeare, to Tang Xianzu's hometown. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do. We have this beautiful translation prepared by Professor Huang Bikang of Peking University, where I used to teach long ago. And it's in English unrhymed verse. It's written as spoken drama. And it is written in a way that echoes the way Elizabethan playwrights like Shakespeare wrote. So it's as if the Peony Pavilion had been written by an English Elizabethan playwright, as if Tang Xianzu and Shakespeare, as well as living at the same time, had worked at the same time in the same place. And we're really curious to see what fans of Chinese opera and Fuzhou opera will make of hearing the Peony Pavilion, bits of it at least, just done as a play.
So do you think it's a good way to promote the theatre culture?
Yes, absolutely. It's what's happened to Shakespeare. Shakespeare's plays have been continually reinvented and adapted for different theatre traditions in different languages all over the world. Tang Xianzu's reputation so far has been very much confined to China and largely confined to opera fans. If Tang Xianzu is going to enjoy the kind of influence and popularity that it deserves, then it needs to be opened up to other ways of performing it in other languages. So I hope we're sort of beginning to hold a door open by which Tang Xianzu might escape into a wider world beyond his home fan base.
Are there any difficulties in performing the English version?
Well, they're, of course, performing an English translation of it. We're not trying to learn how to sing. We're not trying to learn the tunes, or we're not trying to learn how to quiver our beautiful sleeves. We're playing it as though it was a play, as though it was a Shakespeare play, really, the way we would do a Shakespeare play. And I don't think Tang Xianzu would mind. You can have both. You can have multiple ways of doing great classic plays. Great classic plays, they pose questions that we haven't answered yet. Each generation will have a different response. Each audience will have a different response to the way Tang Xianzu explores questions about individuality and desire and bureaucracy and the afterlife and all the amazing things he raises and debates in the Peony Pavilion. And, you know, doing it in English, in verse, that's one way.
How did the cast feel when they put on traditional Chinese costumes?
Oh, they're enjoying it. It's more fun with the dressing up box. You know, they're not attempting to convince anybody that they're Chinese. They're not trying to enter the tradition. It's just a gesture towards it, a kind of acknowledgement of the world from which these plays come and which they depict. But after all, you know, most performances of Shakespeare nowadays, you know, people don't dress up as Elizabethans. You know, they want to show who the characters are in ways the audience will understand. Yes. So that's all we're doing. It's a few gestures, really. We don't have very elaborate equipment. We don't have very elaborate costumes. There's no attempt to recreate a traditional Tang Xianzu opera performance.
And I'm wondering how the Western audience feel when they watch the performance.
Well, I hope they will enjoy it. I mean, our audience back in Stratford enjoyed it, but then they're used to experimental theatre and to seeing old plays done in new ways. You know, if a play is good, it wants to be done in new ways. It needs to be done in new ways. You know, it keeps them alive. It keeps them young. Plays happen in the present to their audiences, and they need to address the present in the way in which they're staged.
So, which part of the play do you think is the most interesting part? The part you want the audience to see?
I mean, I wish we had time to perform the entirety of the Peony Pavilion, all 55 scenes. We've only got time to do an hour's worth. You know, a very cursory outline. So the famous scene of the dream itself, where Liu Mengmei and Du Linyang meet in the garden in the dream, that very erotic, very powerful fantasy, sort of fantasy that turns out to be more real than reality scene. I think a scene which works very nicely, which I enjoy very much in our performance, is the scene where Du Linyang comes up before the judge of hell, who in our production is played by Liberty Odell, who is American, and who plays him a bit like an American revivalist preacher, who's, you know, like a televangelist, you know, a very physical and comic and, a very playful, sort of satirical performance as this kind of corrupt underworld judge who lets Du Linyang out. I think they're wonderful scenes. They're incredibly funny in the original. They're so like dealing with bureaucracy, you know, even though it's set in hell.
Do you play a role?
Well, I come on and do a prologue. I actually have the nerve to impersonate Tang Xianzu. You know, it's a little prologue that's been written by Huang Bikang, the translator. So I just come on at the beginning and I am Tang Xianzu in retirement in Fuzhou and thinking about writing this play and setting the characters loose, you know, bringing them to life and setting the play off. Yeah. So it's a great treat for me. I used to act all the time when I was a student. It's nice to be allowed to do it again, even if it's only for 4 minutes.
The next guest is British actor Liberty Myers-Odell. So how do you feel about participating in a performance?
Oh, I really enjoy this play. I had the opportunity to work on it when we were in Stratford at our stage reading, and Professor Baikong came and talked to us about the play, and I was able to work with Emily C.A. Snyder in the stage version of it, and I played Lord Dubao, and for this version I get to play Judge Hu also, and I really like Judge Hu. I like this switch between the two characters. But there's something about the beauty of the romance and how ethereal the characters are. It's beautiful that Lin Yang loves Mei Mei so much that she goes to the underworld, and that's the only thing anyone can even see that she's thinking about is this man of her dreams, and the opportunity for her to go and pursue him outside of the cycle of reincarnation is just, it's beautiful that her love is so powerful that the judge, that his job is to send people where they belong, recognizes that and sends her where she belongs, which is to go and search for her love. I think it's just gorgeous.
Was it difficult for you to understand the Chinese culture in it?
So part of what we were looking for, so with the cultural exchange, and we recognized that as the sister city to Fuzhou, that Stratford-upon-Avon is the sister city and they're connected, we really wanted to look at this play from a Western lens. How would a Western audience interact with this media? So part of that was that we wanted to look at that. Actors in the West very regularly get double cast, particularly in Shakespeare, which, of course, our connection to Tang. So in Shakespeare, regularly you have multiple characters played by the same actor. So we wanted to recreate that in our rendition, and that's why we have myself and Kirsty, who are both playing multiple characters, as sort of an ode to that tradition. And so, as per your question, as far as the ancient tradition, part of that was we wanted to separate it a little bit so that it was still that Western version. But we took a deep dive on TikTok in Chinese television for the representations. We've seen adaptations of Peony Pavilion, and we tried to utilize that and bring that in. Also, one of the things with Judge Hu was looking at the ancient opera, or the traditional opera, and trying to integrate the same large movements. While I do them a little bit faster, my intention is still to connect the physicality with the vocal tradition that I saw when I did my research. So, yes, but it was really fun. It was a great opportunity.
Next, let's talk to Matt Gray. He's also a British actor. What attracted you to participate in this play?
Well, of course, the cultural connection, because it's really, really interesting to see two different writers from 400 years ago writing. They didn't know each other at the time, of course. Sure. We know that they were writing at the same time and writing about the same things. So that's really exciting because it makes you realize that for hundreds and thousands of years, people all around the globe have been experiencing very similar things: love, jealousy, deceit, kindness, and all those universal human traits. And so when those are explored across cultures, yes, it gives you a deeper, more clear understanding of what it means to be a human being.
Have you got any inspiration from this play?
We've been working with the Kunqu Opera company from Nanjing. We performed at a very old theatre, Ming Dynasty Theatre, you probably know just here. We played scenes from Macbeth and scenes from Han Dan's Dream. That was a wonderful experience to be able to work with actors from Nanjing in a very, very ancient traditional form. Nowadays, Shakespeare in acting is different in the approach because we approach it from a modern perspective. You know, it's approached very much like people approach what we call psychological realism. Yeah, so a lot of Shakespearean work that you see isn't rooted in a tradition in the way that the Chinese opera is rooted in tradition, very stylized practice movements. Now, I'm not putting a value on that. It's lovely to celebrate different approaches and different outcomes and to learn from each other. So I've learned a lot, of course, from the disciplines exercised and practiced by the Chinese performers. And let's hope they've learned a little bit from us too. I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Do you think it's important to pass down the traditional culture of Shakespeare or Tang Xianzu to the younger generation?
Totally. Yeah, good question. Yeah, absolutely. Because with old language, I'm sure you find this in Chinese, but certainly we find this in English. Shakespearean language is difficult for children to access. They've got to get through that language before they get to the real beauty, because it's, yes, one thing is the poeticism of the language, but the other thing is the beauty of the human spirit as it's played out through the various characters in the plays. So when that is experienced, that's relevant to young children. It's relevant to old people, of course. Romeo and Juliet Juliet was about 13 years old. She's often played as a young woman. She was a teenager. They were teenagers. So I think young people connect to their story very, very powerfully, particularly when parents don't approve of their boyfriend or their girlfriend. That's a very, very young theme. Making that available to young people is very, very important because you're sowing the seeds for future audiences and keeping the culture alive.
Now let's welcome Emily Snyder. She's the director of the English version of the Peony Pavilion. Would you like to share with us the music creation of the play?
Sure. So, when we were working on this piece, this wonderful translation by Professor Huang Bikang, who actually does the epilogue in the play as the poet translator, since this is originally an opera, a Kunqu Opera, there are many places that felt they needed music, that this play, because it's about love and dreams, needs music. So, because we are playing with what it means for Western people to be allowed to perform a beautiful Chinese piece, we thought we'd introduce some Western songs to help and give a little bit of that music. So we sing She Moved Through the Fair and Shularun, which is in Irish. Both of these are Irish songs. And then took an English melody and gave it Shakespeare lyrics. The Fear No More Than Night, that is Shakespeare lyrics. And then we took Professor Bikang's beautiful translation of the lyrics and used it for the Lakme duet, the one that's that one. So I'd be happy. So we chose them because there was something evocative. There was something in the music that when you hear, my love came to me and she moved through the fair. When you hear that, you know the lovers are meeting in a dream. And when you hear that shoo, shoo, shularun, you know that, oh no, the desire has become too much and she is starting to go mad with grief and falling into despair. This is She Moved Through the Fair, and this is the music for our lovers, for our heroes. My love said to me, my mother won't mind, and me father won't slight you for your lack of kind. And she stepped away from me, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. In the West, and I imagine here too, we have a saying that when your emotion becomes so big, first, I suggest, you have to start speaking poetry. Then you start singing. Then you start dancing.
The next one is a Chinese performer, Zhou Jingxuan. He is now a student at the University of International Business and Economics. Well, as a Chinese performer, how do you feel about the differences between Chinese and British theater?
About the story, because our play is about a story birthed from dreams. So it is a very vague and hard to understanding theme. So we experience a process to really get the meaning of the play. But I think an important point about this is that our rehearsing, because our cast between China and UK, the crew have just meet each other yesterday. So before that, we have been rehearsing all about online meetings. So the moment when we meet at the airport and then we combine our crew on the stage, it itself feels like a dream coming true. So it's a coincidence that our play's theme is also about dream and love. Dream and love is actually the central point of Shakespeare and Tang Xianzu. I think that's because the two things are like the expression of human spirits, which can surpass time and space. These are two very powerful forces. About the difference between British and Chinese theater, I think one of the things that strikes me most is that because when you say English lines in British theater, there are a lot of consonants, combination of consonants and vowels in your line. So that makes you more powerful and dramatic when you express that line in English on stage. So that's what I feel the most different thing between Chinese and British theater.
Now let's welcome American actor Paul Lucas. Would you please introduce yourself and the roles you played to our listeners?
My name's Paul Lucas. I am playing the part of King Lear in Hand and Dream, a Shakespeare character, and also for tonight's performance, I'm playing part of Romeo and Juliet's court. Right? Yeah. And currently I'm living in and working in Singapore, but I'm from the USA.
So, what attracted you to participate in the play?
Matt, he's playing Shakespeare. He's a good friend of mine, and he is working at LaSalle College of the Arts. And he asked me if I might be interested in this project. So I read some lines, an audition, and the director, Leon Rubin, he said, yeah, my voice is strong, sounds like a king, maybe?
It is.
And so I think that's why I'm here.
So has the interaction between the local cast in China given you any inspiration?
Yeah. Now, what I find really fascinating with the Chinese opera style is the level of physical control, because they are quite slow and very controlled and like athletes. I think they're sporty, right? And so that helped me to kind of inspire me, I guess, to not copy their style, but adjust my style of performance so that it can blend together, because Shakespeare is quite big and loud and emotional. Right? Okay. So maybe we brought it down a little bit, but we don't want to change Shakespeare too much, right? But trying to make the blend between Chinese opera and Western Shakespearean style theater, it was an interesting challenge.
So, do you think it's important to inherit the opera culture to the younger generation?
I think any traditional style of performance, I think is important to teach young people, so that we have a sense of tradition and a sense of historical belonging. We understand how theater has come about and maybe how it's changed. And I would think it's the same for Chinese people with Chinese opera, right? I would think, but I don't know Chinese performance culture very well. So this is a little bit new to me, but I think young people should understand their cultural past.
Thanks for listening. If you have any question or you want to know more about Kunqu Opera, don't hesitate to leave your comment. We'll reply you in the comment section. And you're always welcome to leave a message to tell us what you want to hear from us. Bye for now.